What if the thing slowing your stream down every single morning had nothing to do with your prostate simply running out of options, and everything to do with something sitting in your kitchen you've probably never once connected to it? I found out by accident, and it changed the way I've stood at a toilet ever since. I'm 83, and my stream today is stronger than it was when I was 60. In the next few minutes, I'll tell you exactly what it was and why it worked. These days, I don't think about it anymore, which is honestly the whole point. I stand, it happens, I'm done, the same unremarkable non-event it was 50 years ago. I went camping with my son last month, using nothing but the woods, and it wasn't a production. I'm not telling you that to brag. I'm telling you because I spent years quietly rearranging my life around a problem that had an actual, fixable cause. At 60, I never thought about urinating at all. It was automatic, instant, forgettable. By 70, I'd started noticing a delay, standing there a few extra seconds before anything happened. By 75, the stream itself had thinned, slowed, lost the force I'd never once had to think about in 50 years of using a bathroom. I told myself it was just age doing what age does. Everyone gets slower, I figured, plumbing included. I never brought it up with my doctor directly. It felt too small a complaint for a real appointment, and too embarrassing to lead with. There's a particular calculus men my age do without ever saying it out loud. Is this worth using up part of a 15-minute visit on, when there's blood pressure and cholesterol and a dozen other things that felt more urgent to raise first? That silence cost me years of just quietly adjusting. I started timing bathroom breaks around how long I thought they'd actually take. I stopped standing at urinals in public, always finding the stall instead, because standing there waiting felt like being watched. I got quietly good at strategies nobody should have to develop. Running the tap to help things along, positioning myself so nobody was standing at the urinal beside me. Little accommodations that, stacked together over years, amounted to a kind of constant low-level vigilance I didn't even notice as a burden until it finally lifted. Looking back, I'm honestly a little amazed at how much mental energy went into managing something I'd never once actually named out loud. There's a specific kind of exhaustion in managing something you've never said out loud to another living person. Not your doctor, not your own wife of 50 years. I told myself it was too minor a thing to mention, too embarrassing. And each year of silence made the next year of silence feel more natural, more like the default. Here's what nobody explained to me. The prostate sits wrapped directly around the tube urine travels through. As it enlarges with age, which happens to most men to some degree, it can physically narrow that channel, the same way a garden hose gets weaker flow if you pinch it part way. It's not that the bladder lost strength, it's that the exit got tighter. That's the piece worth sitting with for a moment. The tissue involved here responds directly to specific plant compounds found in ordinary food, the same way blood pressure responds to sodium. Researchers who study this treat dietary intervention as a legitimate, measurable lever, not a consolation prize next to real medicine. For 11 years, the bathroom ran my nights. Up at midnight, up at 2, up again at 5, a weak little stream each time and never quite empty. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, knowing I'd drag through the next day half awake. I thought it was just age. It wasn't. Here's what no one ever sat me down to explain. The prostate crowds the channel your urine runs through, so the bladder never fully drains, it just fills right back up within the hour. That's why you go, and go again. It was never weakness. It was never getting old. And the pills they kept handing me, they left me dizzy every time I stood, gave me that strange, dry finish where almost nothing came, and the nights never changed. But there is a gentle way to help that bladder empty the way it's meant to, without any of that. At 83, I finally sleep through the night again. I'll show you exactly what in this video, and if you want the simple support I personally use, there's a free presentation linked in the description below. So here's what I actually changed. I started eating foods rich in a plant compound called beta-sitosterol, pumpkin seeds, tree nuts, avocado, and to a lesser degree, tomatoes. There's a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial where men with symptomatic enlarged prostate took beta-sitosterol and showed real, measured improvement in both symptom scores and peak urine flow after 6 months, compared to men on placebo. A second, separate multi-center trial found the same pattern, Meaningful improvement in urinary symptom scores with beta-sitosterol versus placebo. 2 independent trials, same direction, same compound. I want to be precise about the mechanism because it matters. Beta-sitosterol appears to interact with the same tissue pathways involved in prostate growth and inflammation without the side effect profile of some prescription options. It's not a drug. It's a compound your body already knows how to use, concentrated in food you can buy at any grocery store. What struck me most, reading about it the first time, was that this wasn't some obscure supplement dreamed up by a marketing department. It was tested the same rigorous way a pharmaceutical company would test an actual drug. Randomized, placebo-controlled, double-blind, and it held up across 2 separate research groups working independently of each other. That's a different category of evidence than a single flashy testimonial, and it's exactly the kind of thing that convinced my own skepticism. I started with a small handful of pumpkin seeds most afternoons, and a real serving of tree nuts a few times a week, treating it the way I'd treat any dietary change, consistent, not occasional. I added a few other pieces around it. A short walk most mornings, since regular movement reduces the nervous system tension that can worsen prostate tightness around the urethra. Less alcohol in the evening, since it's a bladder irritant on top of everything else. Better sleep, since the whole system seems to recover more completely on nights I actually rest. None of these pieces would have done much in isolation. It was the combination, sustained for a couple of months, that actually moved the needle. I want to be honest that I nearly gave up around week 4, assuming nothing was different, before the real shift showed up closer to week 8. Looking back, week 4 was almost exactly the point where the earlier trials I'd read about started showing measurable separation from placebo too, which I didn't realize until much later. If I'd known that timeline going in, I think I would have trusted the process instead of nearly abandoning it out of pure impatience. I also started paying closer attention to how I ate the pumpkin seeds specifically, since a handful eaten mindlessly in front of the television felt different from a handful eaten as a deliberate part of the day. That distinction sounds small, but treating it as a real habit instead of an afterthought is probably why I actually stuck with it past the discouraging early weeks. My wife and I hosted a barbecue for the whole family last summer. Hours on my feet, in and out from the yard, and I never once had that dread in the back of my mind about finding a bathroom quickly. She mentioned afterward how relaxed I seemed the entire day, and I realized she was right, and I hadn't been thinking about it at all. I think about a man named Harold who wrote in, 79, who told me he'd assumed a weaker stream was simply an unavoidable cost of being over 70, the same way gray hair is. He said learning there was an actual clinical trial behind a specific food compound, not just a vague suggestion to eat healthier, was what finally got him to try something concrete. Harold told me he'd started keeping a small container of pumpkin seeds on his kitchen counter, the same way you'd keep anything you actually intend to eat regularly, rather than something buried in a cabinet he'd forget about. He also admitted something I recognized immediately, that part of him had assumed a genuine clinical trial couldn't possibly be behind something as ordinary as a seed, that real medicine had to come in a prescription bottle to count as real. Reading the actual trial details, not just a vague claim, was what finally dismantled that assumption for him. If you're on medication for your prostate, your blood pressure, or your heart, please hear this clearly. Nothing here replaces your treatment, and you should never stop or change a medication on your own. Mention any new supplement to your doctor first, every time, no matter how ordinary the food seems. What I want you to walk away with is this. A weaker stream isn't just a fact of aging you have to accept. In a documented clinical trial, it responded to something as ordinary as what's in a handful of seeds, tested with the same rigor as an actual pharmaceutical, not just a vague herbal promise. I think a lot of men my age have been trained over decades to treat food-based fixes as automatically less legitimate than a prescription, as though real medicine only comes in a bottle with a label you can't pronounce. That assumption cost me years of not even looking in this direction, and I'd hate for it to cost you the same. I think that's the part that still surprises me most, even after living it. The fix was never expensive, never complicated, never something I had to order from overseas. It was sitting in the produce aisle the entire time, waiting for someone to explain why it mattered. I think about all the years I quietly rearranged my routines around a problem I never once brought up directly with anyone, not my doctor, not my own wife. There's a particular loneliness in managing something silently for years, convinced it's too small or too embarrassing to mention out loud, when the actual fix was sitting in a grocery store the whole time. I've since made a point of actually bringing food-based questions like this directly to my doctor, instead of assuming it's too minor to be worth his time. Most of the time, he doesn't have a detailed answer ready, simply because it's outside what a rushed appointment usually covers, but every single time he's been glad I asked, and that alone has changed how I show up to those appointments now. So here's what I use: a few drops every single morning. And let me be honest about why it works. One herb on its own nudges one thing, but your prostate answers best when several signals are calmed at the same time: the flow, the emptying, the pressure behind it. That's why what I take brings them together, concentrated, working as one, not a single ingredient hoping to do everything. Stronger stream, full emptying, quiet nights, your freedom back. And none of the trade-offs, no dizziness, no dry finish, nothing taken from you as a man. It's linked right under this video. Go see it for yourself. It won't replace good sleep or your own doctor. It's there to support your body. At 83, I sleep through. It is not too late for you. I think about the man I was, timing bathroom breaks and avoiding public urinals out of quiet embarrassment. And I think about the man I am now, who doesn't think about any of it at all. It's a small thing to most people, standing at a urinal without a second thought. To me, it's the clearest proof I have that a body isn't required to just wear down on schedule. If you've ever quietly rearranged your life around something you assumed was unfixable, tell me in the comments. And if this kind of specific, documented explanation is useful to you, go ahead and subscribe. There's more of this ahead every single week, and I read every comment myself, even the ones that just say, "Same here." Those matter more than you'd think.